Thank you for joining us on Redacted Memories, the place where we take a look at the legends, conspiracies, and just plain spooky.
Welcome to Redacted Memories, where we open your eyes to the truth behind the veil. Brought to you by Boyd's Howlin' Huskies. Now your host, Colin, Clayton, Joey, Mike, and Timothy. Thank you for joining us today on Redacted Memories. First thing on the agenda is Banshees. Now I'm going to give it away to Joey and Mike.
All right. Well, Banshees. I guess the first question would be, what is a Banshee? Is that Banshees. Well, Banshees are also referred to as Woman of the Fairy Mound or Fairy Woman, is a female spirit who heralds the death of a family member, usually by wailing, shrieking, or kneeling. Her name also is connected to the mythological important or mounds that dot the countryside.
Yeah, something I found out is that they originally, they were real women. They had their job was literally, they were called keeners, and they were hired to grieve at funerals and outside the house where someone was expected to die. And they would actually be wailing these songs for the dead. And eventually they actually, around between the 8th and 15th century, they have turned into actual spirits, where it became a more spectral thing.
Personally, I mean, I've never really looked too much into the lore of Banshees. I just knew it was basically an Irish thing.
So they came from a real thing and then got turned into a urban legend, pretty much.
Yeah, basically that's what happened, yeah.
Basically.
I didn't even know they started out as a real thing. I've always just known them as an urban legend.
Which, I mean, that comes from our corner of the earth. I mean, we're here in America, and this is obviously heavily Irish and Welsh. I believe is what it came from, so.
They brought it over.
Oh, most definitely, I mean.
And so, when you bring something over, it's going to get distorted and turned into something that it once wasn't.
I mean, I guess one of the real questions is do you think they're actually a thing? You know, I mean, do you think they're the stereotypical Banshee where, it's just like a woman dressed in a white gown, that ventures through the woods and all that stuff, shrieking and yelling and complaining?
Well, I do think they're a real thing, but I think, something what got turned into, what we think of Banshees now, you say you're in the woods or whatnot and you hear something, screaming, your mind's automatically going to go to what you already
that
know.
Was Banshee.
And so it's going to transform it, and you're going to associate that with a Banshee.
I'll be honest, at the start of this, I was all for it. Banshees are a real thing. And then after I was doing my research and seeing that it was a real job, and it kind of, like you said, became an urban legend, kind of led me astray for it, because, I'm more on the opposite side of it now. I don't really think it's a real thing.
Well, I mean, if it was their job in life to be a mourner and do all that, then throughout history, you take over what you've done in life into the afterlife, and at that point, you're going to be doing the same thing, so it's going to become an urban legend.
Me personally, I honestly think Banshees are just that, literally just an urban legend in today's standards now, because, I mean, especially seeing as how it's where they're originating from, Ireland and all that stuff like that, which is a country that's riddled with all kinds of wild lore that is literally
Fairies.
Yeah, I mean, fairies, leprechauns, and all that kind of stuff like that. So, I mean,
to the point that they're actually revered, where there's certain parts that you can't go into because they're blocked off. They're basically national monuments or national landmarks at this time that you can't go there because of the fairy people. So,
see, I find that
you're absolutely right. I kind of believe that they have changed, because Banshees could have been real, have been real people, started out as a real job, all of that, yes. But now we have more urban legends around all over the United States of just women in white just appearing on highways. So I'm saying, what if the normal term for banshees has changed? What if that's now the new banshee? Every time you see a woman in white on a highway, that's now your new banshee.
Just a woman mourning, more or less.
Yeah.
I mean, you got
It's
multiple.
warning and saying there was an accident that happened here.
Yeah, I'd say
It doesn't necessarily have to be a wailing woman.
I mean, it would fit perfectly into the whole concept of what the Banshee was, you know, a woman figure dressed in white and all that, crying, mourning, and all that stuff like that, which, I mean, completely, honestly, I mean, now that you mention it like that, I mean, completely fits in perfectly with, you know, United States versions, I guess what you would call the United States version, which, you know, are the women in white on the highways and all that other kind of stuff. I mean, because they're always seen as like crying or mourning or, you know, looking as if they're in like a distressed state of mind and all that stuff like that. So, I mean, when you put it like that, I guess it could make total sense how the Banshee, once all the Irish and all that stuff migrated over here and all that stuff like that, their lore came here and it just slowly twisted in and became something within this state.
Well, that's just like, I tell you, elephants have green ears and say there's 10 people in line, you whisper it down the line. Time it gets back to me, it's going to turn into, you know, the sky's green. So it gets twisted and turned and everything else.
Oh yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, yes, banshees, I still think banshees are real. I just don't think that they are what they used to be. Because how many times have you watched something on the news or had a friend explain a ghost story? It's always been followed up by well, I saw a woman in white.
Well, see, that's another thing is when most people think of banshees, they think of something, you know, evil. Something's about to happen. I mean, what if they're just there to literally bookmark an event in history that something happened there, something to mourn about? They're not necessarily bad or anything like that. They're just kind of like a bookmark or a warning that something might happen.
So basically, you mean like kind of like a harbinger?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That sounds like what a new banshee would be, especially in America.
I mean, that is part of their lore. I mean, you hear them, you hear them shriek or whatever, you know, the banshees cry or whatever like that, and that is supposed to signify the death that was coming.
Yeah, I don't want to put a whole lot of precedent on this, but like the whole woman in white thing, I mean, that's a whole separate topic right there, because that's its own thing, the woman in white.
Yeah, it's all across the United States.
Yeah, so let's say, like, if the wailing thing is a typical thing of the banshee, are they real banshees or are they this other entity?
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I wasn't trying to misconstrue it and saying that the women in white are banshees. I just think that it's changed.
Oh, it's very much possible. I mean, and when we think of it,
there are always women in white all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, that's a legend that's never really going to go away. And throughout history, if we've learned anything, everything changes and turns into something that it once wasn't.
I can completely get behind how it originated, but me personally, the Banshee itself, I honestly just, I can't believe that the Banshee itself exists. Like,
I mean, then again, I mean, like, how many people have had something happen to them or they can't explain it, so they're just like, oh, it was a Banshee.
Yeah.
To make them rationalize what happened.
And I'm not discrediting anyone who's from Ireland and Irish, and you know that's your thing. But me personally, I just can't. I don't know. I guess I just can't wrap my head around something like that. Just basically roaming about.
Said, don't get me wrong. I've heard plenty of like screeches and stuff like that.
I've heard all kinds of wild shit.
But I've never seen.
My first thought was never like you hear a scream in the middle of the night and all that stuff like that. I can honestly say I never jumped up and was like, "That's a fucking banshee."
Yeah, but once again, I mean, does that come down to our culture? Because, like I said, this is not an American thing.
It could absolutely be. I mean,
like where I'm from, I hear a scream in the woods. I think,
but in the same context.
Or
What was that?
Part of it is culture. Part of it is a religious thing.
Right, and that's another thing we can touch on later on is the religious side of things and culture side of things and how they're intertwined with all of this, some way, some form.
My thing is, I mean, they hear her scream and all that stuff. It's probably their culture thing and all that stuff like that, but how many of those could have technically been just a wild animal or something like that, and they just associated it with it?
And see, that's where I was going with
it. Coincidence just falls into play.
To a lot of pagans, like, the Banshee is, like, not so much an individual malevolent spirit that manifests itself in a way that, like, everybody can witness. It's a personal experience that somebody has. They can be in the forest and hear a fucking, like, gut-wrenching scream that sounds like a child or a woman just wailing off into the distance, and it could honestly be a bobcat. And in Michigan, it's a well-known thing for people to hear these things and go investigate it, and it's a fisher cat, which will then attack them and then subsequently eat their body.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of that, ties directly into what previous cultures had experienced with screaming ladies and the ghosts and the people dying. And a lot of people believe, especially older pagans, believe that that's an omen. Like, when you hear that, the onset of death, because in many cases it was the onset of death for that person when they went to investigate it.
Yeah. You got anything you want to touch on the Banshees, Timmy, before we jump to a different topic?
No, you pretty much covered it. I mean, I'm in agreement with all of you guys that I think it's changed over the years, and that what was once true is now something completely different. I'm also never going to Michigan if fisher cats eat fucking humans, but that's a completely different topic.
I mean, welcome to the jungle.
But no, I think we're good. Side note, the mammals in Michigan are fucking massive, whereas the reptiles are smaller. The further south you go, it's the exact opposite. Big ass rattlesnakes, tiny deer.
Dude, it's crazy. Like, I actually found that out when I first went to Illinois. Like, I had a buddy. It's like, no, the deer up here are like the size of cows. I was like, no, you're full of it. And he's like, hey, do you see all these deer? I was like, where? And the cattle? And it's like, no, they're actually deer. Like,
yeah,
they're massive.
It's pretty wild.
Like, down here, our deer only get like 100-something pounds. Up there, they're like 200-300.
Personally, I'm gonna say, Banshees are a no-go for me. Interesting story and completely like that. It's probably, like everyone said, it's a religious ideology and all that stuff like that.
I'm not going to say they're not a no-go. I'm going to leave it up to it's an unknown for me. But I'll leave it up to the viewers' idea of what they think.
I mean, yeah, like, personally, I'm a no-go.
I haven't experienced it, so I can neither confirm nor deny its existence. So
yeah, it's like I can't either. I would personally say it's a no-go, but I would love to hear from anybody. I'd like to hear y'all's thoughts on it.
I haven't heard enough stories about it. Like,
I haven't looked into it enough.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's not something that was a major priority to me to look up.
The next one is a pretty juicy subject. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I mean, there's all kinds of accounts that can literally be accounted for, being video, audio, all kinds of stuff like that, which is poltergeists.
Now, poltergeists, like I said, you got stuff all over the internet, videos of anything from cabinets opening up to stuff being, doors, windows, or anything opening, being unexplained. And
I mean, yeah, there's a lot on it. I mean, just here in my notes, I've gone with 25 well-known cases, which mean they have been marketed or they have been recorded in some presence. There's 25 cases that are just known. How many are unknown?
Which I believe the earliest account of a poltergeist case was from 1654 to 1656. The whole, I'm probably going to butcher how it's pronounced, the Genloose Devil.
Yeah, I want to say Glenn Luce.
Yeah,
I want to say something
probably.
like that.
But I mean, and probably the most well-known poltergeist case within this whole category. I mean, I don't think there's a single person that probably doesn't know about it, which is, the Amityville case.
It's definitely between the Amityville or the Enfield poltergeist. Like, those were two huge things.
I'm going to say Amityville and the Enfield poltergeist are both.
Yeah. And like you said, that the first case, that recorded case, was, like you said, from 1654, and the most recent well-known case that I'm aware of right now was from 2004 to 2005, and once again, probably gonna butcher this, the Canito di Caronia fires, and which obviously poltergeists, they come from very horrific deaths is usually what I find on poltergeist. So these being fires killed probably many people, so I'm enticed to believe it.
I found it interesting while researching more into poltergeist, learning about things that, I personally didn't know either. Like, one of the things is, I guess, poltergeists tend to prefer women over men.
Yeah.
And they tend to involve a female adolescent who usually suffers from an emotional turmoil, and that's usually when the activity starts to begin. Which is also crazy because there's all kinds of different theories on what a poltergeist could be, a malevolent entity and all that stuff like that. But there's also, during this research, I thought it was a very, very, very interesting theory on whole poltergeist activity and all that stuff like that.
There's a ton. There's a ton of other explanations.
Like, one of them was it being basically a case of what was it? I believe it was psychokinesis.
Yeah.
Where a person is going through so much turmoil and so much basically bullshit within their lives and all that stuff like that, that they project that energy out, which causes, the disturbances like, glasses breaking and so on and so forth.
Well, see, I'm a big believer in you can manifest your own, energy and create these things. I mean, I believe that's what a lot of poltergeist is you're creating your own energy up there. And I'll say, but if it's prefers certain women or whatnot like that, that tells me that it has to be somewhat intelligent if it's not just coming from that one person.
I think it falls under a case by case thing, because I feel as if it could be a malevolent entity, but some other cases can just be the person's own turmoil and all that, projecting the energy out and all that stuff like that. Because personally, I believe in poltergeists 110%, because I've lived in a town called Alturas when I was a kid. We moved there from Sacramento. We moved up and we stayed at my uncle's house. The very night we got there, we went into the kids' room to sleep. Very first night, I'm asleep. This is back when the TVs, had the turn dials and all that stuff like that. Next thing you know, all I hear is click, 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 click. And I open my eyes and look at it, and it's a TV knob just turning on its own. I was all like, alright, that's pretty damn wild. I do the kid thing, hide under my blankets, and next thing you know, I hear the pull knob pull out, and boom, right then and there, once again. And my uncle's house was absolutely terrifying. I never really want to go back to this town because this town was so creepy. There'd be doorbells ringing, you'd hear knocking, pounding, and all that stuff. And it's actually the same house, Colin, that I told you about, that hat man in the window and all that stuff. Same exact house. Same exact house. You constantly hear kids crying, people arguing with each other, and nobody would be there.
Well, see, I mean, if one of y'all want to chime in.
I was gonna say that's. I am with you on that, Joey. I lived in a house that has had a poltergeist, But my experience was different. He wasn't a malevolent spirit. It was my grandfather who died in the basement of a heart attack. And we could tell when he was there, or if someone had pissed him off, for lack of a better term, because he would come up and open every single cabinet door in the kitchen. He liked to mess with people. He wasn't about scaring people. He literally would just come up if you said, "Oh, I don't believe in ghosts." He would come up and open all of the cabinets in the house.
Well, that in and of itself, I mean, that's a big thing, because one thing I found out is that spirits, entities, whatever you want to call them, poltergeists, they do not like to be denied. If you deny them, it gives them, like, you're basically wishing them away. You're thinking them away, and they don't like that. They want to be known. They want you to know that they're there.
Yeah, it tends to piss them off and make them want to get even more wild.
What are your thoughts?
Exactly. Say it again.
So we were asking Clayton, does he have any thoughts and views on the subject?
Honestly, a part of my personal religion involves dealing with things like poltergeists. In my religion, we call them astral nasties. And
That's an interesting
what
one. I like that.
What a lot of us believe is that it's not so much something that has a sentience or like see, the issue with people trying to understand these things is we're trying to understand them as a human being, and we only have like 5 normal human senses to experience these things, and even those kind of suck. I mean, we only see less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum in front of us of visible light. You know, there's plenty of light that passes your eyes that you literally can't see because you don't have the physical means to do so. The same with sound. And like a poltergeist has been known through history to be, I mean, literally translated over, the word polter in German means noise or knocking, and Geist is a spirit. And it's just been known to be this disturbing event that somebody had to experience. And a lot of us pagans believe that what you're experiencing is the intent of something that was there before. Kind of how you can be around your friend, say nothing to him, and completely understand that he's about to do something or he feels a certain way. It's something like that, but you're not dealing with a living person anymore. You're now dealing with something that had intent before it died, and now it's explaining its intent. You are experiencing its intent. And sometimes it's not great, but in the end, it truly depends on the person that's having the experience as to whether this is a disturbing phenomenon or an interesting phenomenon.
So that, I feel as if that would fall under the category, would it be, how there's different hauntings and all that stuff like that? How there's, oh man, I forgot the terms for them. You got your residual haunting,
And you're intelligent.
and then your intelligent haunting. It sounds like so you're then that would fall under the category also, like, would a poltergeist be a residual haunting if they had intent before they died and now they're just trying to make their intent known, or would that be a combination technically of the two?
Well, if they're trying to make it known because they had intent,
yeah, that would show the intelligence.
That would be intelligent. Residual would just mean that they were, whatever in history that they were doing at the time, it would
But wouldn't that technically be what they're doing, though? They had the intent before they died, but then they died, and now they're trying to get that intent across. So therefore, they're constantly replaying to get their intent across. So wouldn't that technically classify as
it would change it.
If
It
they're
changes every
intelligent
time.
enough to do so, you may just be feeling their intent before they died, such as somebody grasping for air that suffocated. You may be in the room where this person died, and they're desperately trying to grab something like a knife or something off the counter to cut whatever is around their face or around their neck, suffocating them. And you may simply be experiencing their intent. You walk into the room and like you see things fall off the counter because the moments before they died, that's exactly what their intent was, to grab something off of the counter.
Yeah, so then that would be residual.
Yeah, it really a case by case.
Yeah, it'd be another
It'd
case by
definitely
case scenario.
Yeah, it'd definitely be a case by case.
I was gonna say, it should be a case-by-case scenario. Because again, in my experience with poltergeists and my old house, we literally, I grew up with my grandpa being in the house and messing with people, and if somebody denied him, he would make himself known.
Mm-hmm.
To that same extent, when we had a wedding down in Burlington, Kansas, we all packed up and went into, the entire family went. We all packed up, got into a car. But on the way down there was an empty seat in the car. And Grandpa followed us down there. He went from KCK to Burlington, Kansas, because he knew my great-grandma was getting ready to die and he wanted to be with her, to bring her over.
There you go.
See, I feel as if they definitely could be the mixture of residual and freaking intelligence, because when I was a kid in that fucking terrifying ass house in Alturas, you'd hear things arguing and all that stuff like that. And there was a time when I was a kid and all that stuff like that, I sat there and I told them to shut up. And then next thing you know, I had a plate chucked at me and all that stuff like that. So that's why I feel it's like case by case, they could be either just residual or intelligent, or they can be both, because they're replaying their last moments, and then all of a sudden when you interrupt that moment, I feel as if they got the capability and the possibility to turn into an intelligent and basically tell you to shut the hell up, that they're in the middle of something, you know?
Yeah, but I definitely don't want to get
It almost
confused
feels
with
like a disservice to call them all one name, because they are in fact on a case-to-case basis like that. To just lump them all together as one thing almost feels like doing these spirits a disservice.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. I don't want to get confused with, is it a spirit trying to get your attention by throwing something, or is it actually a poltergeist? Because to me, when I hear poltergeist, I immediately think some sort of ill intent, some bad,
like
something
a demonic
bad's going to
force.
happen. Yeah. So something along those lines, which isn't always that, because I don't want to tack on that there is possible of natural phenomenon that could do these, and like your house creaking, things like that. Well, is that old water pipes? What year was your house built? Things like that, which is a possibility on some aspects too. Wood warping, opening cabinets, things like that. So it really depends, and you really got to look at every aspect of it.
I'll say for me to like come back around to what I said to begin with, of it, you know, being able to manifest your own type of poltergeist, pretty much. Over in my house, there on Drybone, you know, just had it built in 2017. No reason for it to be, you know, quote unquote haunted or have anything in it, because it's brand new. Haven't done anything in it. But you know, I'll be laying up there in the loft, and I'll have cabinets open up. Now, granted, at this time I was also really depressed. So was that, you know, me manifesting, you know, something and it, you know, doing what it does? Because even the dog would react to it, and I'd just lay there and go, nope, not paying attention to it, and it wouldn't stop. So I guess it really would be on a case-to-case basis.
I feel as if what you described could perfectly be that psychokinesis, because you stated that, you know, you were depressed at that time and all that stuff like that. So I mean, that could literally be a case of that, the theory of psychokinesis.
Like I said, there was no reason for anything to be in that house. Nothing happened there. It was literally
it was
just
brand
built.
new, like you said.
So why would cabinets be opening up and closing and stuff coming off the counters?
Well, see, that really, and through my research, that really boils down to poltergeists act differently than your typical regular ghost, as in they literally can haunt a location or an individual. They don't have any parameters set for them. So, did you go somewhere? Did you do something that brought it back with you unknowingly, and then they start using the energy of your place to manifest themselves? I've seen many cases where that's happened.
Yeah.
I am a big believer in things feeding off your own energy. So if I, you know, depressed at the time, the depression gonna give off a lot of energy for them to.
Oh, depression is the
know.
number one, in my opinion, the number one way to manifest something, because you're in a heightened sense of awareness, in a sense.
Yeah, because you're feeling nothing but fucking dread, anger, mixed emotions that are just like absolutely unstable. I believe that's an absolute perfect catalyst for it.
If there's anything I've learned, unstable emotions, it gives off a lot of energy for things to feed off of. Anything, really. even other people.
Timmy, Clayton, you guys got something you guys want to chime in on?
A lot of the people that I've spoken to that are also witches believe that when you experience things like this, that you didn't do so randomly. Like you just walk into a building and then it had this wild poltergeist experience just because they wanted to be like, hey, I'm here. But because like there was an intent behind it. Like maybe they are trying to get your attention because they recognize that you recognize them, or maybe they're just outreaching for somebody they think might be able to help them, or maybe they could be feeding off of you. And that's one of the most interesting points, is we don't know why these things do what they do.
And I don't think we ever fully will.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with that. I think you guys have covered it pretty well. Yeah.
I think that's what separates poltergeists from any other spirit, is that they're more intelligent upon what they are doing as far as what most other ghosts do. As what you said with residuals mainly just, well, this place is located, this location is haunted, so this same thing happens every day, same way, same time kind of thing.
They're reenacting what they did in life.
Yeah, whereas with poltergeist, it's much more, hey, I'm here, this is what I'm doing. Like I said, it feeds more on the demonic presence, and like you said, with them being able to kind of pick up that you notice them, well, people like us that are more inclined with the paranormal, we look at things, we're constantly looking for it, so it is more likely to attach to someone that is has a presence like that.
Someone who can reach out to and say, hey, I'm here. They don't want to be forgotten.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be the whole misconstruction about them being, angry and destroying stuff, is like they're just trying to, if it's an intelligent being and all that stuff like that, they're just trying to reach out and be like, hey, I'm still here and all that stuff like that, and you're just like, whatever you are, just go away, blah 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 blah. That piss anybody off. I mean,
it pissed
honestly.
me off.
Which with this particular type of entity, in my opinion, whether it be malevolent or just them trying to reach out, I'm not willing to take that risk. I'm going to sage my house. I'm going to take some steps, salt things. I'm going to take steps because I don't want to deal with that demonic entity if that's what it is, because they're going to act how they want to act, and then when they get to their manifestation point, they can take a completely turn, and I'm not for that.
I mean, it only took me once to tell it to go away and shut up and all that when it chucked a plate at me when I was a kid and all that stuff like that for me to, not do that again. So, I mean...
Yeah. As far as dealing with poltergeists, it says that right there. So it says ways to deal with them is cease activity if asked politely. They say it's rare. Exorcisms, cleansing. Many have said that their activity just stops out of time.
Apparently, one of the interesting ways of dealing with a poltergeist, probably the most set you up for failure kind of treatment to rid yourself of a poltergeist, apparently, is literally a bottle of spring water.
Not holy water.
Not holy water, nothing. A bottle of spring water.
To get rid of them?
To get rid of them.
There
you go. Look at that.
Take this and sprinkle it around the house, and it's supposed to get rid of it.
You're good.
Yeah, that's because a lot of, and I don't know about other religions, but a lot of the Native Americans believe that spring water, natural spring water, is holy water. So I mean, that could have something to do with it.
I can personally,
I agree.
with the religious aspect of that, I can probably slightly understand that. We're talking legitly spring water from the actual spring itself, because for all you know, that's where that spring is. It could have limestone in it, which is, supposedly is a conductor for it. So therefore,
But this article literally just said
a bottle of spring water.
Spring water. This says spring water on it, but I don't know if that came out of a filter that they just.
Could you just imagine that someone filled that up with the sink, and all of a sudden they're like, "Here's a bottle of spring water. Get rid of this poltergeist." And all of a sudden you walk up to where this fucking activity is in your room, and all of a sudden you fucking pop that bottle, and all of a sudden you just start chucking at it, and all of you are like, "Be gone, be gone."
So what you're saying is, when we start doing these investigations, once we get to that point, we just need to carry a case of spring water with us. I mean, that'll work.
Yeah, I mean, I feel as if it's going to set us up perfectly for disaster with the poltergeist look at us, be like, rub his face in the water and all that, and be like, look at us, be like, what the fuck are you doing? I read that in a thing. You know how stupid you are?
I can see this now. We walk into a haunted place, our multi-religious background. One of us has like spirit water, like holy water. One of us has like a bundle of sage, and the other one's like, I got some Aquafina.
We are also babysitting everyone for the first episode, so
Don't lie to our viewers.
Please.
Those are banshees.
yeah. It's spooky.
Never mind the wails and screams.
Spooky. I think there's poltergeists here now. Yep, you heard that wail? Whoa. Personally, though, I'm gonna chalk up poltergeists as to me personally because I've had crazy, scary ass experiences as a kid that I could not explain whatsoever in the things I've seen. So personally, myself, I'm chalking up as poltergeists as a thing. I believe in them.
I'm chalking it up as I believe them. They're real. But once again, I'm gonna leave it up to the viewers, and I actually want to hear their thoughts on it.
Oh, most definitely. I believe they're real. I haven't had any personal experiences, but that's also because I don't try to open myself up to those experiences with this type of entity.
Yeah, they're definitely
By the way, those of you that are tuning in on YouTube and Spotify, if you guys are interested in dropping a comment and letting us know your personal experience with poltergeists or anything like it, we have a Facebook group, and our comment section is always open for your experiences.
Yeah, makes definitely ready to hear from y'all.
Or if you guys have any stories or anything like that you guys would like to hear, all that stuff, or your experience yourself. We'd like to do some podcasts where we're actually, reading people's actual encounters and all that stuff like that. We love that kind of stuff like that. You can send those over to redactedmemories@gmail.com, and we will definitely get on board with reading those and making some casts about people's personal encounters.
And if you don't want your name associated with it because you don't want people to think you're crazy, we won't say your name.
You'll be known as Redacted. It'll be perfect. So, we got a believe and a believe and unbelieve. What do you, Timmy, Clayton? What do you guys think? Real? Not real?
I think that things are definitely real. My experience with them, though, has been very different, and it wasn't a evil, malevolent spirit. It was a kind of a protective spirit, and he just wanted to be known.
I could dig that.
I
get that.
I definitely feel that, but once again, I don't know if that is a poltergeist or is it an intelligent haunting that just is asking something of them.
I think they're
Jury's out.
personally both. Case by case
Very
scenario.
well could be.
That's where I'm at with it. I think it's a little bit both, but I totally believe in poltergeists.
What about you, Clayton?
Personally, like, a lot of the people that follow the religion I am are trained to understand, evaluate, and often remove these things. I absolutely.
Yeah, and while we're on that topic of religions, I just want to point out that we do try to come at you from an unbiased standpoint. We have different religions here.
We Christians, Luciferians, pagans.
I'm personally an agnostic. I don't really claim a religion. So, I mean, we try to be as unbiased as this can. And like I say, any of y'all that want to chime in and hit us up, we are very interested in hearing from you.
Absolutely. We're the type of people that we feel something's bullshit. We'll say it's bullshit that we personally, our individual, think.
Yeah, we don't want to discredit anything you're saying, but we will discuss it.
I can think something's bullshit, like I did with the Banshees. Personally, I think it's probably bullshit, while others disagree and all that stuff like that. And I mean, that's the type of what we're wanting to do. We're wanting to be unbiased, and we all have different opinions on the most part about a bunch of things. We may not agree, but nonetheless, they're still opinions, and everyone's opinion matters.
I personally want to hear some feedback about these conversation topics from Muslim people and Hindu people. If you guys are Muslim or Hindu and you ever come across this podcast, please drop a comment and let us know what you think from your personal religious standpoint.
I would love to hear about someone's experience with the jinn. I would love to hear that, because some of the things I've seen video-wise and encounter-wise and all that stuff, that's a different ballgame right there.
That's particularly something I haven't personally gotten a lot into, but have always been interested in, because it is so vast, so expansive.
The things I've seen and watched on them is wild. So I agree with that. Definitely drop us a
Orientals,
line.
for that matter. I mean, I don't particularly know what their religious standpoint is, but but I would love to hear it. I mean, I really would.
All right, so
We're pretty much
everybody has their own belief in poltergeist, one way, some form, whatever it may be. The next thing on the agenda?
probably the most controversial, most informative that I've found so far.
The one I have come in contact with the most throughout growing up and everything else is shadow people.
Same here. Encounters in that same beautiful,
Now,
creepy town.
With shadow people, I don't know if there's...
Let's see. Shadow person is a perception of a patch of shadow as a living
Humanoid figure, and interpreted as the presence of a spirit or other entity by believers in the paranormal or supernatural.
Four main types of these are, we have the basic human shape, we have black mass shadows, demonic, and then just simply other forms, because they don't really take a humanoid form as these others would.
And the theories behind, or should I say scientific explanation for shadow people on a skeptic note, is that
I still think
seeing...
theories is decent, because, I mean, none of this is proven. I mean,
Well,
it's
I mean,
skeptical.
everything is from a skeptic standpoint. I mean, but I mean, personal encounters. You know, I definitely think they're real. But from a skeptic standpoint, they chalk it up to like sleep paralysis and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the number one shadow person that I've had the most experience with, and you can look online for this person. There's many stories of him and pictures. Online, he goes by the Hat Man. I know him as Window Man, but
I do too. I actually just told Mike that story that me and you both actually have strikingly similar characteristics about the Hat Man that we've experienced.
I was like, now Hat Man, you know, he's a black mass, and you can make out that he's wearing a hat. Normally, it looks like a fedora for most people. Mine's more like a top hat.
Mine was a top hat that was down to his nose, and he had stringy hair that came out of his hat. And when he smiled, he had thin, razor-sharp teeth.
Which I find it very interesting, because up until this point, I had no knowledge of a Hat Man. I knew a shadow people, I've had experience with them, but Hat Man was a completely new thing for me, so I was very interested to hear this from these guys.
I thought it was pretty interesting with the shadow people history, is how a number of religions and legends and the belief systems describe shadowy spiritual beings or supernatural entities such as shades of the underworld, and various shadowy creatures have long been a staple of folklore and ghost stories, such as, like, you know, the Islamic jinn and the Choctaw. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna slaughter it, so if anyone's Native American, I'm sorry. I'm white. I mean, other languages are terrible for me, and that sucks. But it's the Choctaw, Nalusa Chido. But I thought it was pretty interesting how they act, like we were talking about before, the Islamic jinn.
Honestly, that's the thing. Shadow people, in almost every religion, has some form of shadow person.
Yep.
Now, shadow people can... Oh, sorry.
Do what?
No, go ahead.
Shadow people can range, you know, for me anyway, range from anywhere from being demonic to, you know, just a presence there, or even a warning sign of something to come. Because I've had that happen where I've seen shadow people and something bigger came about it. So, I mean, they don't really have to me, they don't have a specific role of what they're here for.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, even the skeptics are even out on it because, I mean, the explanations that they give for these range everywhere from, like you said earlier, sleep paralysis. We just have heightened senses just being part of it, schizophrenia, bipolar. There's even some that believe that these are extra-dimensional beings, that basically a rift that we're seeing. So it really goes as far as the imagination goes with these guys.
See, and there's also that misconstruction about, like, people thinking shadow people are ghosts and all that stuff like that, when there's actually a complete difference between the two. I mean, ghosts are said to resemble actual people, and accounts of shadow beings generally do not. I mean, though accounts do at times describe shadow beings as having human-like forms, but they're generally not described as resembling actual individuals, living or deceased.
Something I want to touch base on real quick is I've never had an encounter with them. Now, granted, all my encounters have been we'd be out on hunts, and typically, shadow people, it's not typically something you see directly on. They're always corner of the eye kind of thing. So, which brings a lot of skepticism to it. But one thing that I've never had a personal experience with is speaking. Have y'all ever heard of them speaking? Any cases? It's something I found in my research. It says they rarely speak, but I've never heard of a case where they do.
I've never heard of a shadow person.
I've never heard any speak and all that stuff, and me and Colin both, like, experienced it.
What was that?
Sorry, you guys are breaking up. I have heard shadow people growl, and I have actually heard one speak, but it was a very low, almost whispered word.
So more like a disembodied speaking, where it's there but unintelligible.
Like a deep gurgling, and when I say gurgling, I don't mean like gurgle, but like,
a raspiness.
A raspy gurgle, where it's.
That's the thing. Like, I knew it was speaking, and I knew it said a word, but I couldn't quite make out the word.
I mean, you and me, Timmy, we've also had our own personal encounter with the shadow being. Except, I wish this one was out of the corner of our eyes, but you remember a said certain road?
Oh, yeah, I remember the said certain road. I wish it was out of the corner of my eye, but this thing wasn't out of the corner of my eye. I looked at it.
And it honestly sure as hell
did
not act like a standard shadow person. I'm talking this fucking thing snapping through fucking branches to charge at us. I jumped in the fucking vehicle, looked straight on, and all I seen was Timmy turn around and slam his hands on the hood, and he had the most terrified fucking look on his face. And to this day, I still don't know what the fuck he saw, because I sure as fuck didn't turn to look myself.
I haven't had any. Most of my experiences have been while driving. I don't know about y'all, but going down the road, just seeing stuff out of the corner of your eye, especially on the very local road that we have, it's
to me
almost
that
anytime you go up there, probably after 9 o'clock, just happens.
That happens a lot. Like, it seems like, because you'll be driving at nighttime, and all of a sudden you kind of like, your eye looks to the rearview mirror, but you don't directly look at it. You see it out of your peripherals, and all of a sudden you look up real quick because it looks like something's sitting in the back seat or something like that.
Oh yeah.
I've had that a couple times, like when my wife went to the hospital and all that, and I was driving up there, I drove past certain said road and all that, and I would just get this uneasy feeling, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, I'd swear up and down I saw this figure just sitting in the back seat, and I'd look up and nothing was there, and it would piss me off,
now,
too.
See, is there something actually there, or is that just our mind playing tricks on us because we're expecting to look up and see something because we're alone?
I mean...
Oh, no, I'm with Joey. I distinctly remember driving past that road after that night and feeling like I was being watched and feeling the same eyes on me that I looked into that night, and feeling like it was sitting in my back seat, breathing on my neck.
It's also said that, which I mean, I agree with this aspect and all that stuff like that, is that when they're around, they stir up emotions, like everything from like dread, anger, sadness, which I agree myself. I mean, you, Colin, you know, Timmy, you know, and all that stuff like that. I personally completely agree that they do draw up types of emotions that are like, that you can't control.
I can personally tell you that Hat Man or Window Man or whatever we want to call him feeds off of fear, because that guy followed me from being 6 years old all the way up until a couple years ago.
Something I found out about the Hat Man during this research and talking with y'all is that he is actually, I say he because most of the shadow people are known to be male, or seem to be male, or at least male in figure. But the Hat Man is specifically a demonic presence of it.
I actually, as you say that, like one of the things I got written down right here actually is, I'll read it word for everyone who's listening to, is a type of shadow being referred to as Hat Man is actually more akin to the devil or a demon. He is often seen wearing a fedora hat, trench coat, three-piece suit, or might even appear more solid than other shadow entities. It's suggested that these negative beings are seeking to increase their numbers by recruiting an army of people. Do you have any experiences with the subject on shadow people, Clayton? You still with us, Clayton?
Seems
Sorry, my internet's kind of garbage out here now. My family actually experienced a very similar thing regarding the Hat Man out in Searcy, Arkansas. We live right outside of a golf course resort type country club thing, and every single member of my family, excluding me, told me about this experience they had where they seen this guy in this like top hat thing just kind of walk through their living room, and my stepdad like grabbed his shotgun from behind the bedroom door and was like, oh shit, this is definitely not a person. And I think it's a very interesting thing to call them shadow people, because 90% of the time I've had this conversation with people, they can always remember that whatever they're looking at night was darker than anything around it. And what little light would cast a shadow, these things are like the epitome of the black hole entity. There's no shadow. It's a shadow in the night type thing.
Yeah, it's like a shadow. It's a shadow in the shadows. Like you got the darkness, and then you have their darkness that somehow silhouettes in the darkness. I mean, it's fucking crazy.
I mean, I'll dive into my experience with the Hat Man. As much as this entity has terrorized me throughout the years. See, my experience is, and it happened almost every night, is, you know, I'd start to fall asleep, and by the time I'd start to fall asleep, I'd look up in my window, and there'd be this man, you know, Hat Man, Window Man, why I call him that, standing there. He'd look at me, he'd do this evil, you know, grin, and then, a few minutes go by, then he would go out by, and he'd stand by the wood edge, and just kind of stand there like, hey, come join me. And after that, I'd, of course, do the kid thing, hide underneath my cover, and go to sleep. And every time after that, I would always have nightmares of being chased in the woods by different demons. Hence why I have a phobia of the woods at night. I've never told anybody why I had a phobia of the woods at night, but that is why, because of this Hat Man, Window Man, whatever you want to call him. And this has continued, like I said, from 6 years old all the way up until a couple years ago when, I was living with you.
My similar encounter with the Hat Man, as I told Mike earlier, but they probably don't know and all that stuff like that, is when I was probably about the same age, probably about around like 6, 7 years old when we moved into our own place, which was a block away from my uncle's house that had the weird ass, I'm claiming poltergeist activity and all that stuff like that. But actually, no, it was before that. I was asleep in my grandma's bed, and I heard something scraping at the window. And, you know, kids being curious and all that stuff like that. Kids have no fear, but they have fear when there's something to fear, if that makes sense. So I go to these blinds, and I raise the blinds up, and then there's this entity. He's not fully black. I mean, he's pretty dark and all that stuff like that, but he's not like dark shadow type dark. And this damn fucking thing, man, I'm getting goosebumps already. Fucking standing there with fucking top hat down to his nose, stringy, fucking nasty black hair stringing out the fucking bottom of it. And he has his hand just sitting on the window, and he smiles, and he has those thin, serrated fucking sharp teeth. I remember kicking that blind down so fucking fast and jumping back into bed, just fucking crying and all that stuff like that. And I remember getting yelled at because I was told I was making shit up and all that stuff like that. But then when we moved to our house, which was like not even a block away, probably like a minute down from where my uncle's house was, I remember constantly, like, there were plenty of nights and all that stuff like that where I'd be laying in bed, and all of a sudden I see these shadows just standing in the corner. And next thing you know, when I'd sit there and be like, nah, those aren't real. Next thing you know, the fucking things would just quick as shit, just come right at me, grab me by the leg, and just yank me out of my fucking bed. Like, the next thing you know, I'd get up, go to run to my bed, next thing I get pushed down to the fucking ground. And that would happen to me, goddamn, dude, I don't know, so fucking many times and all that stuff. And that was literally the pinnacle point of when I questioned religion as a child, asking why shit would happen like that.
It got so bad for me, the fear and everything, not go outside at nighttime and all that, to the point to where, or even going into a dark room, or running from my room to the living room or whatnot. It got so bad to the point to where my father actually thought at one point in time I was schizophrenic. And, because it wasn't until I got older that, I told him these things.
I mean, we've known each other for over a decade now, and I remember you talking about that. But I also want to point out, while we're on this, when these things happen to y'all, because I haven't had a personal experience with the Hat Man, but I have with shadow people. At what point, or what age were y'all? I mean, roughly.
I was about 6, 7 years old.
It started about when I was 6.
And that's what I wanted to point out is we have this whole thought that
was about 6 or 7.
Okay, yeah. So even you, at 6 or 7 years old, same as everyone else here. Kids are more adept to see the paranormal than what adults are, and the theory behind that being that we have a closed-off mind. The adults have a closed-off mind.
They don't know not to believe what they're saying.
Yeah, and that whole thing right there.
Like, I wouldn't want to go into fucking rooms by myself. I didn't want to be by myself anywhere. Like, especially my room. I never wanted to sleep in my room. Like, my dad would literally get pissed off at me and fucking grab me and force me into that fucking room. And I knew as soon as the fucking night or the daylight sky fucking left that sky, as soon as it became nighttime, I literally, it not like it wouldn't happen every fucking night, but when it happens enough and you're constantly sitting there paranoid, you're waiting for it to fucking happen so you can fucking hurry up and get the terror over for the night and finally pass out from being so fucking scared and tired. But yet, I think that was probably one of the worst things. You're fucking waiting for it, not knowing when the fuck it was gonna take place.
And it wasn't just my bedroom window that I was terrified of. Like, for a long time, I've been terrified of all windows at nighttime, looking up and expecting to see something. I mean, my experience from living in the house,
with
houses together, where I was like,
your room had all those windows.
And I purposely chose the room with all the windows to try to help me get over this. But I mean, it got so bad to where when I was younger, I would literally sleep underneath my bed, and that would be an every night thing. My dad and think I just got out of bed or fell off the bed or whatnot. No, I would purposely go underneath there too high so I wouldn't have to see my window.
Yeah.
Because of this
Not afraid of the boogeyman, but stay away from the windows.
Yeah.
I love it.
Definitely not a fucking fun experience.
Of course, Dad always chopped it up to me being younger, and maybe there was a peeping Tom when I lived in Florida or something. But no, it's because of that person thing.
Yeah, my parents would also chalk it up as I had an overactive imagination. I was just like, yeah, my imagination loved throwing my ass around. That's fucking wild. That's wild.
And I do believe if you had a more traumatic childhood or had events happen, that these things find their way to attach you more than somebody who hasn't.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, that's what they feed off of trauma.
Yeah, they feed off of negative energy.
It goes back to your energy and stuff like that.
It absolutely does make sense, because my dad nowadays, in his older age and all that stuff, he's a great person. But back in the day, he wasn't always the nicest. I'm not going to go into it, but he wasn't the nicest person to fucking live with and all that stuff like that.
Needless to say, we all had our trauma with
Yeah, I'm saying, well, I mean, like when I was 6, it happened. It wasn't as bad. It didn't take off fully, like an every night occurrence, everything, until, my mom passed away and all that happened to me.
Yeah, and I kind of want to touch base on it. Like, we're all here. What even kind of brought us here is, what's your first experience with said paranormal? Mine was actually even at, I believe 5, some young age. I could have been 7. I don't know, somewhere in that range. My family owned a plot of land on what I didn't know at the time, but was an Indian burial ground. Yeah, how they became to it, don't know, but they owned it. And my first experience was I was at this. It was a house that got converted from a barn, and I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and literally a herd of Indians on horseback running through the front door. And that was my first experience with anything paranormal. That's kind of what opened me up to this.
That reminds me of that video of Gettysburg Ghosts.
Just say natives real quick.
Do what?
Natives.
No. To further on with you guys, my experience is very different. It's weird for me to say this, but especially at a younger age, my childhood was not traumatic. I have just always been open to spirits and ghosts and seeing things and talking and feeling energy. The earliest remembrance I have of this is being 3 years old and telling my mom and my grandmother that there's a man on the floor in the basement and he says he loves me. And at that time I didn't know it was my grandpa.
I was about to ask, what was that, a family member or something like that? Because that is typically, or anyone's first experience would be relatives or of something of that nature is typically a first experience.
I mean, maybe that's why most darker entities use the voice and the familiar face and all that stuff to get closer.
Oh, most definitely. Like if you, like, always be wary of familiar voices when you know that voice should not exist anymore.
I'll tell you what type of fucking entities I don't even fuck with. That's fucking ghost children. I don't even.
You could tell me there was a house full of demons that want to kill me, and I'll be like, let's go investigate. You could tell me there's a house full of children's spirits, and I'm gonna be like, nah, fuck that.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Laughter in the dark. Your kid laughing, and then you realize, wait a minute, I don't have kids. Hell with that.
Exactly.
yeah.
Pitter patter ass feet.
It's terrifying.
I don't think my kids would
To further that along, when I was 6, I had to have been either 6 or 7, was my first experience with a negative entity. And it was out of a window again, and it was a shadow person, but I couldn't make out if it had a hat. The only thing I remember about this is blood red eyes just staring back at me through the window. It has left such an impression on me that always strive to remain open and try and see what is on the void. Like, it's just been, I've always felt that that moment has what's pushed me to try and stay open and communicate with spirits and read people's energy and use tarot or, as Colin, Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Oh, I loved it when, I mean, a little side note, I loved it when Yu-Gi-Oh! Did first come out, because a lot of the things I experienced was actually, like, I could look at one of the cards and be like, yo, this is it, you know?
It's what I saw.
Yeah, just drawn from pop culture and that essence of, you know, this is what we have a picture to show with our experience now, you know. It's just whether it be like that through any type of card or media, you know, television, The Conjuring, things like that.
There's also, you know, a whole theory behind them being interdimensional beings.
And, you know, I've noticed that in a lot of this research, everything I've kind of looked up was it's interdimensional beings, which, I mean, I've never really thought about that aspect. I always thought it was a separate thing, but it's kind of interesting that they're all starting to tie in together.
It makes kind of slight sense. I mean, then again, I mean, who knows what the fuck they could really be, honestly. I mean, I can tell you this much, though. I don't know what the fuck they are, but I know my encounters with them were fucking assholes. I know that much.
Definitely don't like to deal with them, but do if I have to.
I know that much for a fact that they're at least the ones I encountered were absolute fucking assholes.
Yeah.
Through and through.
Every single person I've ever encountered has been an asshole. That road terrified me. I cannot think of the name, but that road terrified me.
Now to bring this all back together, I've never come into any contact with a shadow person that was a good thing, so...
I mean, one's never high-fived me or fucking offered to buy me a soda, so, I mean, I guess you can count my encounters.
That's why I say, whenever I'm out on an investigation with these guys, if I know shadow people, that's basically when I'm like, it's time to go. I don't care if I've been there 5 minutes, don't care if I've been there for 5 hours. I see shadow people, I'm like, nope, time to go, because there's just so much of an unknown to them.
They start pissing me off, and that's when I start talking shit to whatever we're out there.
Yeah, you've done that plenty of times. I love it.
I'm one of those people who don't say that, you know, just because an entity has been deemed demonic, that it's necessarily demonic. But my experience with shadow people, they're demonic. For me, there's no ands, ifs, buts about it.
Their actions are... I wouldn't say demonic because of my religious background. I would just say that they sure as fuck aren't nice. I mean, because
I feel like
the shit they've done and all that stuff like that to me as a kid and all that stuff like that, then I would have to look at everything that does something wrong to someone else or whatever as demonic entity or demonic actions and all that stuff like that. I mean, I get what you're saying. You mean like they sure as hell give off that aura of like, you ain't fucking, you're definitely not, you know, a goddamn angel here.
Yeah. Right. Clayton, what's your experience on this?
I mean, a lot of the times when I've talked to people about shadow people, the general consensus among the people that I've talked to about it has a lot to do with what they would consider hallucinations. And 90% of the time I've spoken to these people, it was a lack of sleep that they think caused it. Like they didn't get enough sleep the night before, or they had been up for 3 days for whatever reason. Don't ask questions. I've interviewed a number of people, and they all report like a very similar thing that I've experienced, where it's like you will very vividly see something in almost your peripheral vision, and you go to look at it and it's no longer there. And for me personally, like when I experience these things, I have this feeling, it's almost akin to like deja vu. Like I know this was there, I feel it, but it's not there. And it happens very frequently to me, and to other people, they experience these things due to a lack of sleep. Science says that it's because of the lack of sleep, but other people experience these things without having to go 4 days without sleeping on the regular, but all experience deja vu and all concur that you cannot look at them correctly.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with that aspect, because sleep deprivation after a certain point, your brain starts not knowing what the hell's real and what's not real. But
I mean, you can't discredit all of it, but
I'm just saying,
you can
like,
probably discredit a decent amount when it comes to sleep deprivation.
I'd say when it comes to adults and all that other kind of shit, but I mean, you can tell a fucking 6-7-year-old kid that he was
scared deathless.
Like, sleep deprivation when his ass went to bed at like 7 o'clock and all that stuff like that. No. Yeah. But then again, that's my personal experience. That's me. I know I slept as a kid because I was fucking forced to go to bed early and all that stuff like that. And I'd wake up at, fucking the time kids do for morning cartoons and all that other kind of shit. So I personally, I 110% can guarantee and bet my life on it. I can absolutely rule out sleep deprivation as for the shit that I've seen, because sleep deprivation can't explain why I'm pulled out of a bed and why I'm tossed onto the floor and all this other kind of shit.
Yeah.
Absolutely, dude. My very first experience with the paranormal was being like 6 or 7 years old. And
that
like
number
to this day, at 30 years old, I still will not sleep with my hand hanging off of my bed, because the very first paranormal experience I ever had, it felt like this part of the gate room.
You're going to go.
Like the sweepy part of the region, tip arch up and just touching my hand and scratching the fuck out into this. It's the day, like it's instinctive, and I will not do any.
You were cutting in and out, so you might want to backtrack on that story.
First experience with the supernatural was about 6 years old, and I had my hand dangling off of my bed, and to this day I won't sleep with my hand hanging off of the bed, because it felt like what I can explain as maybe a broom reaching up and the bristles stroking my fingers, and I jerked my hand back and it scared the shit out of me and affected me so much. Like to this day, even at 30 years old, I will not leave my hand hanging off of my bed.
That's why when I go to sleep, I lift my legs up and I tuck the blanket underneath my feet, because I used to not sleep with blankets like that. But I mean, after experiencing what I did as a kid, my feet getting grabbed and yanked off the bed and all that stuff like that, ever since then I started covering my goddamn feet, and when I sleep, I take the blanket and I kind of fold it to my arms and put it over halfway across my fucking face, just instinctively and all that stuff, where I just have just my eyes looking out so I can fucking look at everything. But I'd like to know, everyone's experiences have been ranging, all starting from the ages of between 6 and 7. That's pretty interesting.
I'd also like to know what everybody, from their experiences, what their habits are now. Like,
like how he's changing his sleep pattern and all that stuff.
Yours, mine now, from my experiences, is I now literally have to, like, when I sleep on my side, looking at the window now.
I look at the door.
I now look at the window, expecting to see something, and I can't sleep otherwise unless I'm pointed towards the window.
Yeah, I look at the door and look at the corners of the room.
I usually sleep on my back, but I'm a very light sleeper. If I hear something, I'm immediately awake.
Yeah, see, I'm the first one awake with the kids now. Any noise, I'm up and I'm
dead to the world.
I hear something, I literally, like, I twitch and sit up, like, and stare exactly where the sound came from.
Especially if I'm in a place I have not stayed. Like, if I'm at home, I'll wake up to the kids, because I'm used to all the noises and sounds there. But if I'm even at home, if there's this noise I don't recognize, I'm immediately awake and I'm like, what was that?
Right.
Well, in the aspect of shadow people, I think we completely understand what my standpoint on them are.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of us have gotten and grown. We all had experiences. I don't think any of us are discrediting it. It's like, it's a thing. Like, we're shadow people. They're real. Don't like
It's just a question of what they are and what they want.
But once again, I want everybody who's listening to reach out to us on our Facebook page, YouTube, or whatever platform it is you're reaching us on, and letting us know what your experiences are, what your opinions are.
If y'all's interested in looking up any of this, we also have our sites that we did our research on, our information on, minus our personal experiences. We'll have those linked to our page as well.
And if you want, stories from an individual, I'm sure you could probably reach one of us through our Facebook page, and we'll give you our experiences.
We got plenty.
I'm
We got
happy
plenty.
to tell anybody what I did.
Basically told the absolute bare minimum to kill, cut the time down on talking. Even though we've been going at it for a pretty good amount of time and all that stuff like that. It's just when we get into subjects, we kind of we like to elaborate and go all into it. But we appreciate everybody who's taken the time to listen to our rambles and all that stuff like that. It means a lot to us, and we appreciate it. Thank you guys for bearing with us on us babysitting and all that stuff. We really wanted to get this first one out there and all that stuff like that, and Colin had to babysit today and all that stuff like that, but we didn't want it to interrupt and all that stuff like that. So be sure to check the show notes for quotations on the show and all that stuff like that. And appreciate you guys listening very much, and we look forward to pumping out the next one. If you guys have a specific topic you want us to talk about on the next one, and hit it up and let us know. And don't be afraid to go over and hit up on our Patreon. We got that all set up now, and we got the YouTube channel set up that this will be going over also. And be kind and go ahead and give us a follow on that, stuff like that. And appreciate
Definitely
it.
look forward to hearing from you guys.
Stay weird.